of Nathanius and Artosis.
All right, thank you once again in control. Nathanius, here we are. It's going into Deadwing. Looks like everything's good, so we're going to go ahead and jump into that game. And it's the vertical spawns. We'll talk about that in a second, though, after we announce these players. And Nathanius, I've just always wanted to cast you. I think this is the first time.
Yeah, man. We're making esports history right here, Artosis.
So here we are. And we have this bottom left player. I'm going to let you go ahead and tell us who this is, Nathanius, because I think you always do a great job with this.
I have quite an idea. He's a prolific Terran playing for Team Liquid. He is, of course, TaeJa. And a dominant force in StarCraft 2 pretty much forever. Actually, both of these guys have been around for a very long time.
A very long time indeed.
Yeah, and his opponent in top left, representing Team StarTale, he is Life.
Not, you know, considering he's a world champion, not as good of an intro for him as the Terran player.
You know,
does anyone else, Nathanius Kappa, Terran love?
You know, according to the online forums, it's my job to be as biased for Terran as humanly possible, and I don't want to disappoint those people that get upset at small things all the time.
You would never want to do that. That would be that would be just awful. Well, here we are. It's vertical spawns, okay? And I feel like this is the #1 thing whenever I watch a Deadwing game. Is it vertical spawns or is it not, especially when a Zerg is involved? Tell me why that is, Nathanius.
Well, I mean, as a Terran player, I think shutting down things like the creep spread, setting up a big parade push, especially when you take control of the watchtower, it's very easy to contain a Zerg on 4th base. And normally, like maps like Merry-Go-Round Nimbus, you worry about the 4th of the Zerg. On this map, I think the 5th becomes a really big problem.
Well, taking a 5th here can be quite difficult. Looks like a command center first here from TaeJa. We've really seen that kind of rotate back in the last few months of TVZ. Why would you say that is, Nathanius?
Well, I mean, like a lot of Zergs have just gotten really good at dealing with Reaper play, and there was a good spat where a lot of Zergs would open up with pool first, and Life is certainly no stranger to those types of builds, but it wasn't like super fast cheesy pool. It was catch your Reaper off guard or just be safe against it in case you went for multiple Reapers. So I'm not surprised to see this build. TaeJa's been one of the guys that's kind of okay with doing it, and out of Life, opening up with gas that's kind of his thing, right?
Yeah.
You know, making plays with early speedlings requires that early investment in tech, which can delay things like your 3rd and 4th queen, which can slow down your creep spread as the game goes longer.
Certainly it can. Of course, creep spread going to be a very important part of this match. You know, these spots, I want to actually talk about the map a little bit more in the vertical versus horizontal, or cross spawns.
Yeah.
Because I am of the opinion that if you're cross spawns as Zerg against Terran on this map and you don't take damage for the, you know, in the first like push and a half, I feel like you're massively favored. Do you agree with that?
I really like, if you get cross spawns for Zerg, If you don't take any early damage, especially from any like the weird plays that can happen.
Like the Hellbat push doesn't do you in, and I feel like you're just like, well, you can literally never kill me now. I'm too far away from you.
Even attacks like that are really difficult to pull off on this map because of just the sheer distance you have to go on cross spawns. But this is certainly a favorable position for TaeJa because you also, once you secure your 4 bases, like you're pressing that front area, but you're very close to also being able to send a medevac drop to the side. And because you can, if you get that position, then taking the 5th base, like you can't really move. There's nowhere really to go. And as a Zerg, you not only need that, of course, in the late game, but you need to get your creep spread out. So TaeJa's making a pretty smooth standard transition out of this with the factory. The second gas indicates that we may see a quick starport follow-up or perhaps some tank-based play. I don't think it's bad on this map since most of the time you're looking to get yourself up to 3 bases anyway. And with players like this, I would assume also a pretty quick 4th base. If there's any big aggression, I feel like it would come out of Life, but he's going to get a 3rd base. He's not mining any more gas, and his speed's about to complete, but he hasn't invested too much of his larva into any aggressive forces.
Yeah, not quite yet. I like how he's playing it, though, and I do agree with you. If there's going to be aggression, it should be out of Life here. Like, Life plays the type of style. Remember back when Terrans were actually just making one siege tank blind for a little bit?
Yeah.
I feel like it was because of players that played a little bit like Life. You know, there was enough Baneling busts, there was enough Roach attacks. It's like, okay, give me a siege tank. And while we don't see him doing that here, I think just overall going with the more defensive play, and in fact, I feel like Hellion Banshee is a good way to open up that can be defensive, very good at scouting, pushing, and defending. I think it's smart by TaeJa.
Yeah, the nice thing is that when you open up with Hellion Banshee, if he can poke the front so he can get a read on how many queens there are, but more importantly, if he can send the Banshee into the main or get closer to the natural with abilities like Cloak, he can also get a lot of scouting information without having to use any scans. The biggest thing as his third command center starts up is like how much does he want to commit to this, and that kind of says not quite so much. So I'd be surprised if he did anything like add on an armory, because he's going to go straight for Stim. The Hellions poke. And for TaeJa, this isn't anything suspicious just yet. This is kind of what you expect to see, what you want to see. And it comes also down to information. Life does have an Overlord just south of where the production facilities are for TaeJa, but these Marines kind of pushing away. Has Life seen the Star Report with the Tech Lab? No.
I don't believe so, no. So that could catch him off guard, especially with that Cloak upgrade on the way.
The natural weakness of this is, of course, Life's got his upgrade started a little bit earlier, so as this game progresses forward, the Banshee kind of becomes useless. TaeJa's going to need to make find a couple of nooks and crannies to get in there and make a play. But the lair is on the way. It's not really the fastest lair, so we'll probably see a reasonably late Spire. So there is a little bit of room here for TaeJa to play with, and even if he doesn't want to do damage, he can also try to deny the creep spread.
Well, right now we do have the Banshee going up into the main base. There is already a Spore on the way. In fact, 3 Spores on the way, so each mirror line should be able to be protected quite a bit. But the Banshee taking out a Queen already.
Yeah, this is really nice. Like you pick off the 1 queen, so you have to pull one of them back, which means you have to rotate another to your natural. You have less energy that's going to build up on that extra queen for either transfuses or spreading creep tumors later on, and you're keeping the Zerg player a little bit defensive. Like the Banely Nest is not even halfway done yet, so it's not like even if he could kill these Hellions somehow, he can move out onto the map and get aggressive. And TaeJa's just abusing this because he knows, well, that queen is too low health to actually come and try to contest this position.
Well, even though this has been a successful Banshee harassment so far, and it does in fact continue, which position do you like here out of these 2 players at the moment?
I think with how late this Spire is coming up, like TaeJa still has the aggressive posture, and he's also done a great job of denying creep spread. Like Life hasn't got it past the bottom of his ramp. Now he's starting to spread a lot of tumors because TaeJa's focusing on his Banshee micro. But outside of that, the one weakness that TaeJa does have is he focuses a lot on these small things, and as we can see, his resource count climbs quite substantially. A denial on this Spire would be like game-changing, though.
Seriously, that is just going to be a great pickoff. It looks like he's going to get it, too.
That's a really big deal. That Spire tech is what's going to shut down the drops. And look, 2 medevacs are on the way. Stim is done. This Banshee's going to die, but TaeJa's already gotten everything that he needs out of that. His armory is kicking off, so he's getting himself set up. The one advantage, like I kind of mentioned a little while ago for Life, is that he got his upgrade so much faster. So there's this very short window where he has the 1-1, but it's not as big of a deal defensively because the medevacs are still going to be a problem. The mobility of the Force and not being able to catch those medevacs is what gives TaeJa an advantage.
Yeah, I got to say, those Banshees really were quite fantastic there. But you know what? He's going to have Baneling speed pretty quickly. His creep spread isn't like the greatest thing I've ever seen, but against a Banshee Hellion opening, it's not going to be normally. So I feel like Life is still in an okay spot here. He's kind of a scrappy Zerg. He knows what to do in a position like this.
Yeah, the tricky part for him, like, it's nice that he has Baneling speed finishing up as he's starting to get a few Banelings, but this creep's going to get denied. And this is that forward position we were talking about earlier. These Zerglings come up, but your Spire got delayed, so you can just pick up and get away. And shutting down the active tumors is the most important thing here, because once all of these factories finish up, once all of his barracks add-ons are ready, he gets combat shield, he can choose whether or not he wants to try to immediately lock down a 4th base or just keep this massive push coming. But once he gets the Thor up front, that's going to make it really difficult for Mutalisks to pick anything off and force this back. But Life, these counterplays, these Zerglings on the right side, he's going to try to make a bit of a move.
Well, we'll see what he can do. Right now, he actually is pushing forward right now. Ooh, some good Baneling connections there. Not very normal for TaeJa to let that slip up like that, but still, he has a lot of Hellbats, and he's pushing forward very strongly.
Yeah, stepping towards the 4th. The Baneling's moving onto the Hellbats at the same time. A nice counterattack towards the 3rd base. TaeJa closed off the wall to his natural expansion, but he has killed all the Banelings in Life's base, and the Marines being able to move forward now on top of this, with the upgrades now being equalized, 2-2 is just barely not done yet. It's still a bit of a frustrating position for Life, and especially if he loses any Mutalisks here. So he forces him back. The counterattack with the Zerglings is really nice. The fact that he didn't breach the natural or get on top of the production allows TaeJa to recover a bit more easily, I think, than he otherwise would.
Well, right now it looks like TaeJa trying to stand his ground right here against Mutas, actually picking off a couple Mutas there. A little bit sloppy by Life, trying to punish these medevacs, but not really able to do so.
Yeah, so 2-2 finishes up, and we talk about TaeJa making little slip-ups. He wasn't this far behind in upgrades when both players were getting the +1. So he finds himself with a solid 2 minutes where these +2 attack upgrades aren't going to be ready. So Life can trade a bit better with his Zerglings, but with Blue Flame Hellbats, like, the upgrades for those are much more important, and those units are the ones that can really clean up the link. So most interested in only 7 Banelings on the map. This presents a really big opportunity for TaeJa. Some of these Marines running up front and taking some big hits, though. The Zergling numbers are quite nice.
And it looks like he's going to be able to surround this army quite easily indeed, and it is going to have to turn around and run home. Those 2-2 upgrades definitely paying off, as well as some nice macro here from Life, and he's taking a pretty significant lead. GG, and a sudden victory from Life.
Yeah, really great use of, it seems weird to see a Terran with so few, a Zerg player with so few Banelings defensively, but completely shutting down the economy of that 3rd base. While Life, surely, yeah, he lost his 4th, but if you're all about staying 1 base ahead of the Terran, TaeJa's effectively on 2 bases worth of mining SCVs at that point, and just that link upgrade made it impossible for TaeJa to trade effectively with a smaller army.
Yeah, in fact, don't you think that maybe he overcommitted with that last attack? I felt like, first off, the Banshee harassment was quite fantastic.
Yeah.
The Hellbat push was actually very, very nice. Sure, there was a link counterattack that did some damage, but that next push, when he was so far behind on upgrades, he was on the creep.
Yeah.
He was against someone who had 4 bases for a while, and realistically, even though the previous Hellbat-based attack did some damage, it didn't do economic damage.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Like, when you're behind on the upgrades, and Life also did a nice touch, like he had 1 active tumor left after he cleaned up the creep, but instead of pushing it outwards towards the tower, he actually sent his tumor back towards his 4th base, which refilled that area outside of it and allowed him, once he stepped those Marines onto creep, to just swarm him. And it's a tough call to go for an attack like that, I feel, as a Zerg player, because you're relying on, like, yeah, I know my opponent has, like, I have more Lings than him, than he has Marines, but it's important to keep in mind that those upgrades really seal the deal, because you're not going to win with inferior Marine count against Zerglings like that, especially in the open.
No, certainly not. One thing I do want to point out about that game that I really liked is TaeJa sometimes, I feel like sometimes he's stubborn about if he goes Hellbats or not, because like I've definitely seen some games, especially over in the Burbank studio when we were doing the pre-BlizzCon show, where it's like, no, I'm just going to go Widow Mines all game no matter what. And I felt like it was almost even stubborn, but here obviously he's mixing the Hellbats. I think that bodes well for him, but Life with that victory looks favored here once again.
Yeah, it was really nice. I was expecting him to have more Hellbats when he tried to make that second attack too. It was like just 2 with his army, and that also plays a little bit into what we were kind of discussing when TaeJa was doing his Banshee micro, right? Floats up to 1,000 minerals, and that's not the kind of, stuff that you expect out of top-tier Terran players, or really any top-tier player in the world when they're trying to make these plays happen. So focusing on that, maybe he could have had like quite a few more units prepared, and maybe that first push actually kills him, or maybe he has another wave queued up to defend against the link counterattack.
I think that you kind of nailed it right there. If he had a few more Hellbats, Blue Flame Hellbats against Mass Zergling, that was there were very few Banelings in that hold that we saw, so definitely could have helped out quite a bit. But the next map we're going to be going into here is Nimbus, and I feel like this is quite a nice map for TBC.
Yeah, especially given the possible spawns. We could end up in a situation where TaeJa has a very easy time dropping the natural expansion of Life. And, it's like the Zerg can sometimes get the position where the Mutas can hit the natural of the Terran, but it still doesn't fix like some of the other issues that a Zerg player is going to have. The high ground outside the 3rd base really allows for early pushes to do a good amount of damage if you can set up Widow Mines. And then, the big problem in this map for Zerg is that 4th base is basically within vision of the watchtower at the center. Like, once TaeJa has his 3-base setup and Life's taking his 4th, unless he makes another big counterplay, it's going to be really difficult for him to hold on. But he kind of showed that he could make the counters work in the last game, so I wouldn't count him out just because of the map yet.
I got to say, I think I'm kind of expecting Life to play this game very aggressively, but hold on, this game has started, so we'll go ahead, jump in there, and take a look where these guys are.
Yeah, we are on Nimbus. We got cross spawns, and our first player in the southwest position in red, the Terran from Team Liquid is down 0-1. He is TaeJa. I think we were saying Life has, the guy in the top right position has pretty much secured himself. Like, first, I don't know if it's really possible for him to take 2nd place in this group anymore. From Team Startail, he is Life.
The world champion currently.
Yeah, off the back of some very aggressive play, and it's really something that you don't see out of a lot of Zerg players, because a lot of Zergs will focus on getting that lair a bit earlier than Life did on the last game. You focus on getting Mutalisks, and you want to poke at the Terran while you spread your creep. And then when the Terran goes for that push, you know, there's a lot more creep spread than Life had, a lot more Banelings, and you just try to swallow the army while your Mutalisks continue to harass. But Life prefers to kind of dance a little bit, right? You get the early Zergling speed. Some players would say, like, you could get your extra queens out faster, you could squeeze out a few more drones, but Life's content to have that tiny bit of like opportunity. Like, he doesn't even build out many Zerglings, so I can't say he has map control, but he always has the option open to do something aggressive if he really feels it. And his game sense seems to be quite strong when it comes to making plays like that.
Well, that's really kind of what he's built his championships off of, is those type of like scrappy, like, oh, bam, there's a plume of Zerglings, I did something awesome with them. Yeah. You know, he always seems to find a way to just like wax that joke until it's dead.
Well, this game he's actually doing something a little bit weird.
Yeah.
The hatchery placement, like if this was a Zerg versus Zerg, I'd be like, oh, he's trying to make him think he's not expanding, but most Terrans will have their SCV around that area. I don't, like, you might not think to check the third, I guess, but when he sees there's no natural.
I think he'll check. Like, I want to say I actually like this from Life, because I find that one of the very best openers on this map from Terran is Reaper into Hellion and just like pushing on that third base, because it's so hard when you're taking the third on the low ground for Queens to actually walk down that ramp and hold that expansion. You put on so much pressure, it's like really hard for Zerg. So I like that he's saying, you know what, screw it, I'm going to take that base right now, and I'm going to do the defense early on, have my creep spread, so that I can actually hold on. And it looks like TaeJa's actually going for that build anyways.
Yeah, I have to say, I actually really like your point there about the creep spread. Being able to spread that earlier on the low ground is quite nice, because we saw how well the Hellion Reaper denied the creep on the last game, but on this map, it's quite a bit easier. You have a few more directions to go into. But TaeJa, yeah, the Reaper's going through, Command Center's on the way, Reactor is fired up too. Keep eyes on whether or not he gets a second gas after the factory begins. But you go into this main, you don't really see much of anything, but I think he catches a glimpse of the creep as he comes to the side. Like, he'll know that this base was taken, but I'm not sure there's like a lot he can really do in response to it. No,
certainly not right now. So again, I do like the choice from Life here, but the question remains, will Life do something hyper aggressive? Because, like you were saying, Nathanius, taking your fourth base on this map is really difficult for Zerg to get. First off, to get the creep there, and then just how close it gets to the Terran. It's like very, you know, you see some of these players like Flash, like especially Flash on this map. Every time I see him play this map TVZ, I'm like, well, you're not holding that fourth. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because Life he's one of those guys that can make those mid-game like busts work, or like the counters, but those counters are much harder to do on this map, because generally there's only one point of attack, and that's the front. And sometimes we see players try to go by that third from the south side, but most of your production rally is still going past it, so it's really tricky to actually like kill all the SCVs. Maybe you'll take out the bunker and some depots, but anything beyond that is difficult. TaeJa this game, opening still just one gas, so really fast third command center. He's not as focused on dealing the early damage, but with the size of the map, I think that makes a lot of sense. The spawns don't really favor it. So just grinding out for the long macro game so far, both of these guys.
Yeah, I would actually love to see that. And, you know, I think it was you earlier on saying, like, Life doesn't want to go into a macro game against TaeJa. But, you know, I think he's not as bad at macro as people think. You know, some of these players that play the more aggressive style, you look at him, you're like, well, I mean, he wins in the early game. When he gets to late game, he loses more often. But I feel like Life, while he's no Sue, he can hold his own if he has a little bit of an edge going into the late game.
Yeah, the funny way to look at it, as like these Hellions and the Reaper try to do a little bit of poking, is Life won so many games so quickly when he was playing at BlizzCon. It's like, have you even practiced like the latest stage of the game on a big stage against guys like this? Because you just won all your other games so fast.
Right now we do have that pressure. Would be difficult if he was trying to take his third right now. Like we see, he's taking his third in the back. If that was at the front, the creep spread wouldn't quite be there. This would be a lot harder. But with these three queens and a bit of creep spread, not quite as hard for him.
Yeah, you're not really worried about the creep spread in your natural on this map, because there's really not that much space. So you generally don't even need to spread tumors in there. The Hellions are trying to find an opening, but even though Life opens up with Zergling speed, because he doesn't use it aggressively at the start that much, he really focuses on having a lot of queens at the same time, and this allows him to deflect the Hellions while these bad boys run out onto the map. But TaeJa actually catches a few of these and actually loses a few of his Hellions in turn.
Well, Life trying to just surround all those Hellions there. Does get a little bit, but making a lot of Zerglings. He
Yeah.
already has that Baneling Nest as well, so it looks like he does want to do a bust.
Yeah, with no lair in sight, no evolution chambers, it seems he's going to try to just crack him open right here and now. 2 engineering bays are about to finish up, but I'll tell you what, the second and third barracks only just starting out for TaeJa. Like,
Oh boy.
we talked about like the blind tanks people used to make. It's because Innovation did this like every single game, and people are like, you can just make Banelings and kill the Terran. And I think that's what Life is going to try to do. TaeJa, he's been the guy to survive these kinds of plays. It's very important that he didn't lose all of his Hellions and that he's still continuing to produce them. Going to be a lot more useful than Marines, but turning them into Hellbats will allow the Banelings to actually hit these.
Yeah, that's right. That would have been a great Hellion shot, but instead he will get in here. Now he is pushing these Banelings towards these Hellbats. He does kill off quite a few, but quite a few Hellbats left as well. I don't think he's going to take any real economic damage.
He's holding on so far. A few more Banelings are going to come through. He's managed to hold this choke point. This is like the key spot, and even spreading Hellbats against that one Baneling, but Life is not done just yet. 24 more Zerglings in production. He's continuing to stream across the map and build Banelings in vision of the factory. But important things to note is that if TaeJa can hold out long enough, he's going to have the upgrade advantage coming through. Just depends, can he? Even his factory now is like within contention of being killed.
Well, it's going to be a little bit cost inefficient for him to go up this ramp, but if he can get the damage done, it's going to be huge. Here we go. He's pushing forward right now. The Baneling's going in, getting some decent hits on some of them, and in fact, only one Hellbat left over. That factory almost dead.
Yeah, he's going to lose his factory. It's burning down now, pulling all of his SCVs in his main base to try to hold. The factory's gone. Reactors are finishing up, but one Hellbat and a bunch of SCVs will not stop this attack. Life swarming over the last remaining unit of TaeJa, and that's it. There's absolutely nothing left here. He's just going to kill him.
That's it. And Life shows why he is, in fact, the world champion, the best Zerg player in the world. It's hard to really argue against it when he can 2-0 TaeJa like that.
You know, it says a lot about a player when you can win with a lot of these types of strategies. Your opponent scout, your opponent like kind of has an idea of it, but they know that you do this in every tournament you play, and you can still kill them with it.
He's something else, man. We do not get many Zerg players like this. This is not the Zerg player you want to try to copy and emulate to become a good player. Almost no one can ever pull this off, but Life showing once again that he is a champion and definitely a force to be reckoned with here.
He even marched his queens cross-spawn Nimbus. That's how confident this man is.
I think he should have. I think that's a great play.
That's pretty hardcore. GG, Life takes the 2-0 over Liquid TaeJa. And yeah, well, that was about as plain and simple as it gets.
Yeah, that was pretty straightforward right there. Moonglade, what do you think about Life's style here against TaeJa? He's speechless. He has nothing.
He's blown
nothing
away.
to say.
He's like, man, I tried to Baneling bust Terrans cross spawn Nimbus, and they just have like 4 bunkers and 3 Widow Mines, and I just die.
Well, that's what would happen.
It's a hard life.
See normally, you know. And again, TaeJa is one of the best at holding cheese. Like whenever I see someone try to kill him with the cheese, he just holds on. It's like no problem. Just build some extra bunkers and walls and stuff, but. Life, a different beast altogether. Moonglade, maybe you have something to say?
I found my voice now, and
oh, good.
Yeah, I mean, it's standard Life. He gets 3 Helens. He's like, okay, I can kill you now, and he goes up the ramp in Nimbus against Hellbats and kills him. Yeah. I think the biggest mistake was turning him into Hellbats, as Nathanius was saying. It gives the Bane's abilities to hit it, where if you just kite with Hellions, you get a shot off down the ramp, you run back, and you just keep doing that until you whittle down everything. It's so much easier.
Do you think that, because it felt like he turned him into Hellbats, like, did he know the Baneling bust was coming the moment he turned him into Hellbats on top of his ramp?
I think he did. Okay. I think he did, and he's like, okay, I'm going to tank this with Hellbats and be cost efficient, but he was not in a position to be like that, have that kind of fight because it's in his base.
Yeah.
And, I mean, once you have Zerglings in your production, you can't really just have an army anymore as a Terran. You're split up and... You know.
It's one of those incredible moments too, where like his brain has 0.5 seconds to make a read on that, and he was like, "Oh, that's a good," you know, that's what he did. And there is a crazy choke there, and that's kind of like that's how Life plays as well. He forces really weird situations on you, like a Baneling bust on that map. Not super common because it's really hard to pull off. Actually, it becomes like a very small choke area when those rocks are up.
Yeah, you know, he's an ultimately decisive Zerg, and you see that pay off even in these weird situations, like. I think that'll work. Okay, let's go!
Yep. Well, we're all set and ready to go to hear from that ultimately decisive Zerg. Smix, let's hear from it.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Congratulations, Life, on making it first out of your group. Very, very impressive plays from our BlizzCon champion. Now, I don't know if you were listening when TaeJa was interviewed earlier about going up against you, but TaeJa said that he would beat you, and he was very, very confident. Were you equally as confident going up against him? 아까 전에 윤영선 선수와 인터뷰했을 때 이승현 선수와 다시 만날 때 이기겠다고 되게 자신감인 말을 했는데 이승현 선수도 똑같이 자신감 넘쳤나요?
자신감이 넘친 건 아닌데 뭔가 필이 좋아서 제가 이긴 것 같아요.
컨디션?
네, 컨디션도 그렇고 생각하는 대로 잘 풀려가지고 이긴 것 같아요.
So Life says he wasn't particularly overconfident or anything like that, but today he feels his playing conditions are great, and he felt like every strategy and every play that he went for was very smooth, and everything just went according to plan. So he thinks that's why it was able to be such a convincing win for him over TaeJa. Now, TaeJa is considered one of the strongest players at this tournament alongside yourself. You are now very, very close, 3 games away from making it to the Grand Finals because you got first in your group. Do you think that there is anyone left in this tournament that can stop you on making it to the Grand Finals? 방금 윤영선 선수 이겼잖아요. 이제 이승현 선수와 윤영선 선수 이 대회에서 정말 잘하는 선수들인데 이제 경기 세 번만 더 이기면 결승전 가게 되는데 그 윤영선 선수 말고 또 다른 상대 선수 이승현 선수 막을 수 있을까요?
이번 대회에서 영서 형이 제일 잘하는 선수라 생각이기 때문에 승자전에서는 편하게 갈 수 있을 것 같아요.
그럼 결승전까지는 당연하다. 뭐 이런 뜻.
편하게 갈 것 같아요.
So he says, I definitely think that besides myself, TaeJa is the hardest opponent for me at this tournament. So I think that it'll be a very, very smooth journey for me through the winner's bracket. And so I asked, so does that mean that you're pretty much considering yourself guaranteed in the Grand Finals? And he said, yes. Now, last but not least, like you're a recent BlizzCon champion, and now you're here at Dreamhack Open Grand Finals. I know that obviously winning BlizzCon is amazing, but here, doing so well here, it has a different meaning, as this is the last tournament for our Dreamhack Open stops, and it's amazing because you were able to win a Dreamhack Open earlier this year, but the Grand Finals is so much bigger with so many of the better players here. What would Dreamhack Open mean for you, winning the Grand Finals here? 이제 그 블리즈컨 우승자이긴 하지만 여기 드림해க் 오픈 결승전 여기에 오셨잖아요. 근데 만약에 여기에서도 우승하게 되고 잘한다면 블리즈컨 우승과 달리 어떻게 의미가 좋을 것 같으세요?
이번 대회에서 우승한다면 앞으로도 정말 잘 풀릴 것 같은 예감이 들고 꼭 우승하고 싶어요.
He says, if I were able to do well here at the Dreamhack Open Grand Finals, I feel like the road before me would be so much easier. I'd have smooth sailing for a long time in my play and gameplay, and so I definitely want to secure this title. We'll continue to cheer for him as he did make it out of the group stages today, so we'll see him tomorrow. We're going to head back to the studio desk to see an overview of all that's happened in Groups A and B so far.